This is the panel on generative images, and I'll let them introduce themselves. You know me, so I'm Linus. Nice to see you.
I'm Minta Carlson. I also go by Araminta K. You can find me on X, etc. under that. And I'm an artist traditionally, as well as a creative technologist and a fine-tuner of LoRa models, for those who know that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emilio, and I am a technical entrepreneur. Together with my co-founder, Javi, we have built and launched Magnific AI. I hope you know it. It's a scaling tool, and it's our second company, and we have been acquired recently by Freepik, so now we are part of a bigger group. So I'm very glad to be here with you.
And I'm Sofía. Some of you might know me as Sofía from Freepik, because at this point it's like getting to be like that. And I'm currently the manager of the Red team, our kind of AI growth department within product marketing. We're like in the sweet spot of making all these AI things happening at Freepik.
So we have quite a diverse group. So a little bit of a check with you guys. How many people in the audience have used text-to-image or image-to-image generation? Can we see a raise of hands? Right. So we know we can talk about deep stuff now. So let's go to the point here. I'll start with you, Emilio. So obviously Magnific redefined upscaling in many ways. You could argue that.
Yeah.
There are other products out there, we don't need to mention them, but you know, with Magnific, what are the biggest technical complexities with kind of upscaling and maintaining quality?
Well, yeah, first of all, as you said, yeah, we redefined the upscaling, and we are proud of that. We didn't know that we were doing that at the very beginning, but upscaling is just about making up some pixels that you don't have in the image. So how can you make them up by, back in the times, you just interpolate those pixels. You take, if you are in a gray area, then you are going to make up a gray pixel over there. But with AI now, we can make new details from scratch in the image, so you can get a better quality image than just interpolating pixels. So that's why Magnific, I think it was so successful, because we created this new vertical of upscaling. And you have to make the users and empower them to control the AI, because the AI, you all know, that can hallucinate a lot. So if you are upscaling something, and maybe you can get something in the picture that you didn't want to have it, and you have to empower users and give them control. That's one of the big issues with upscaling with AI.
Also, like, potentially one of the things that maybe people pushed back on in the beginning was like, oh, you're not doing upscaling, because you're doing reimaginative upscaling.
Yeah, that's a good thing. We think that that's a good thing. We were creating a new image, but all upscaling was also creating a new image. If you are doubling the pixel in an image, even though you are doing the boring upscaling, as we call it, you are creating a new image also. So that's kind of not make too much sense for us.
So obviously, like, we've seen the movies, you know, like enhance, and everyone in the creative industry didn't think we were ever going to get there, because like you can't invent pixels, right? But seemingly we can. So as the scaling, this is a question for anyone who wants to answer it. So as the scaling technology kind of improves, you try to keep it reshapes kind of the quality standards that we have when it comes to visual art?
I think so, no? Like, quality-wise, at least, it's gonna be like on top of like everything, no? Like, we're now generating images with Mystic on 2K, and they're like already being like, when is it gonna be 4K? When is it gonna be 8K? You know, so like, I think that's something that the race is going there, no, definitely. But like the content that you do, the generation behind the artistry of it is like the real challenge, no?
Yeah, I would say that it's very dependent on the use case and the style goals. And this is something I try to like go back to a lot, because I think oftentimes when we talk about upscaling and really high definition images, we think realism. But there's a whole world of art that requires a different level of nuance, and sometimes it's not about adding, but about maintaining negative space in particular types of art. So I think quality standards likely will go up because more people have access to technology that allows them to reach a certain level of quality, but it still requires a human who understands how to avoid some of the mishaps that they might hit if they don't have some of the awareness around what does work and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think it makes total sense. And also, like, from a user point of view, it's like you're upskilling, but currently, like, the upskills also have limits, right? You end up in a position where hallucination becomes an issue, or you're just adding blemishes, and it just becomes worse off than it was before. I think there's a fine line there. All right, so if we look at, like, how we saw before now, how we started with DALL-E, and now we're kind of getting into the land of, like, realism, but also crazy kind of models in general. How are we, like, changing? How is that, like, that experience, how will that change over time? How do you think that will continue to be evolving?
I personally think that we still haven't quite cracked capturing all styles in a way that is truly consistent. I think we see a lot of the generics that the bias exists in these models. Every model has a bias because that's how it was trained. It was trained to understand patterns, and biases exist in patterns. That being said, I think that we can continue to add more and more patterns, and I think we're going to start seeing more of these edge cases that perhaps are harder to generate or kind of get generic overwashes become more consistent and stronger.
So maybe we get to a point where, like, we need a new data set. We need lion, bigger lion.
Maybe we are building on top of those models, most of us, so we are creating these tools like Laura's in Freepik, or we have just launched SREF in Magnific. That I think it's awesome, trying to fight against this, to try to get consistency in the creations, because these creations usually are for a better, not for a better, but for a bigger project, like a comic or a storyboard story or a video game, and you need the consistency. That's the big issue that we are facing.
It feels like it's the #1 required thing, right?
Yeah.
It's been this from the inception. People are like, oh, it's just a magical box. You input something and you don't know what comes out. I want controllability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the word of 2025 on AI and generative AI is going to be control, for sure.
Yeah. Consistency, I think consistency / control, because, like, we've had control. We saw now, we talk about control net, we talk about, like, posts, those type of things we've had, but we don't have consistency, right? It's really difficult. We're getting there, but, like, no, let's see how we improve.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. So obviously massive scale. Everyone keeps talking about scale, because, like, a lot of this we saw from Joshua yesterday, like, you could create thousands of objects, thousands of images. Like, where does it end, though? Like, at what point is scale no longer needed? Because, like, wow, do we need to? It's almost become a spam at some point. Like, where do we draw the line between, like, quality, quantity? Where do we see this going?
Well, at least in Magnific, yes, that's a difficult matter, because, for example, in Magnific, we try to get the best quality image that we can possible. Even though with the AI, it's always, you feel always, I think the audience also, you feel like you are rolling the dice. The dice, I mean, because the randomness, it's in the technology, but we try our best to get the best quality image, even though it's a little bit slow in some occasion, and it's a trade-off, but quality for us is the very first thing. But yeah, it's our approach, at least.
Yeah, I would say I'm a little less on the product development side and a little more on how people are adopting the tools. And I have found that actually people use quite a bit fewer images than you'd expect once you start to get into a habit of working backwards from the goal.
Yeah.
So oftentimes when I'm working with new clients, they'll say like, how many images do we need to generate? What do we need to create this? What do we need to customize this? And I have to sit down and say, actually, we need to outline exactly what you want, because most of the time people aren't used to asking for what they want.
Yeah.
And also, I think that there's a great quote about like the quantity part of it that you mentioned. I think it's very interesting that we're probably ending the age of information and we're entering the age of noise. Because I think that we have to understand that at this point it's going to be like a bit of a saturation, and the quality will be like a standpoint, but then what's behind it is going to make it like shine through the noise. No?
Yeah, I think that's very true. Everything goes in circles, right? Like it goes, we end up in curation and we go back. So we're talking about like aesthetics, like that's a thing that's very big for you, right? Like you're not, as you said, on the technical part. Where do we think the kind of control over aesthetics is going? Like, what is your vision of it? Like, where would you want things to go as an artist?
Yeah, so I do a lot of training on my own illustrations and my own art. And I find actually, and I hear this from illustrators a lot, the models really, on their own, lack a lot of control around illustration. For me, I think that if we depend entirely on apps to come up with the aesthetic, and this is sort of where I like using Midjourney, but sometimes I'm a little resistant as well, because there tends to be this shift towards what is the aesthetic that the model creates inherently, like how do we capture that aesthetic? And I honestly, just based on like the history of aesthetic, the history of what becomes stylish, it's influenced by typically what we're going through as a culture. It's often a reaction to what people are experiencing. And as soon as something's in style, it's out of style. So yeah. I think that we're going to find, like I especially do like what Freepik and Magnific is doing around creators, and I want to see more apps creating these experiences and these spaces where creators can share and interact, because that's where I think we're going to get the most interesting stylistic pieces. And also, I mean, I am like a diehard for fine-tuning. I think that the data sets actually do have a lot of information, but the text is not there to pull that information. So I think fine-tuning is becoming easier, is becoming more approachable, and I think we're going to see some really incredible, really weird, really exciting things.
And also, this is where it gets complicated, because like why this is taking off, in my opinion, is because it's quite easy to go into these tools and put in some stuff and get some stuff out. But the moment where you go, oh, you need to fine-tune, or you need to train, or you need to be a bit more hands-on, then all of a sudden, like, the people that you're targeting becomes a bit different. It's no longer that, let's say my sister's not technical, let's say she goes in there and she can produce stuff, but she would not sit down and train style, so she would not do that type of work because she wouldn't know where to start.
I would argue that's an interface issue, because I have seen some of the worst models of my life from people who are the most technical people that I know. I don't actually think that a technical understanding is relevant once we have the right UI in place. And I actually find that people who understand style, pattern, and design are easier to teach. I teach people all the time how to train. It can sometimes take weeks for me to train someone who's technically advanced, and an afternoon to train a trained artist.
Do you think it's because they already know too much? They're already too biased in their skill set?
I don't think they know enough. I think that art is actually incredibly technical. I think people, because they think of it as something like a soft sort of cultural thing, they miss the fact that art is a deeply, deeply technical practice, that even if you're not doing it as a technician, even how you sit and think about art. Like, I went to school for theater, and we had a whole class where we just had actors standing on different parts of the stage, and we looked at what the impact was when there was a different arrangement, like nothing else happening. And that's an experience you kind of have to go through. You can't just be told. You have to see it, and that's what art education actually really helps with in AI.
And I also think a lot of people don't know about this, right?
Yeah.
This is where there's like misinformation about how the different kind of silos work, and yeah, it's very good. It's very interesting. So for Emilio, when you guys are building out Magnific and when you're kind of deciding like what to do, and like how do you balance the ever-increasing kind of feedback from users that they want more control versus like, obviously Magnific has a lot of flavor, if that's a word to use. There's like inherently something there that's maybe it's Javi's magic, maybe it's your magic, but how do you balance this?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we try to get to give the users control of something that is difficult to control itself. But we have advanced users that they don't want to give the control to the AI to hallucinate. So we have a few of them, but the thing is, where is the line? Where is the line? Because we have under the hood a more complex system with a lot of parameters that we have just put them and go ahead, okay? But some of them we try to give control to the user for them to get the best from our product. And it was our decision to make it like that. But maybe there are users that can get a little bit afraid of being just magnificent, and you have a lot of sliders over there, but you can get a very good result just by keeping the defaults, and that's also a very important work, to give a very good default output in Magnific, at least in the Upscaler and also in Mystic and in the other spells that we have. But at the end we decided, this is a decision, you can just make a button and go ahead, but in Magnific we made that decision, and then we get these specialized users that we have, that there are a lot of them that they can use the tool better than we do. That's amazing. You are always learning from them. You are always we were in Korea 1 month ago, and one girl was, she told us what she was doing, restoring all very old pictures, and she was doing an amazing job, not just restoring, but also colorizing, and we didn't know that we could that with Magnific. It was amazing. It was a big workshop with her. We want her to maybe to hire her or whatever to put that workflow inside Magnific. It was amazing.
It's amazing. It's like residual capabilities. Like you thought you built an upscaler and you built like a restoring tool. That's fantastic. So I guess then the secret is that you guys, you kind of work with this every day to try to figure it out. And then like inside of the Freepik AI suite, where is obviously Freepik is a big tool, a lot of people. Where do you kind of see that? Like, I know you're not a product person per se, but like, where do you see that going in terms of how that is handled within Freepik?
Do you mean like how the tools are going to evolve? Or?
Yeah, like where do you draw the line, right? Because you could argue that you can make it as complicated as you want, but you need to find a balance where like, okay, how do we actually get this in front of people to use it?
Yeah, I think it's quite hard, because in your case, it's been like kind of a very kind of straight on line. And we used to have like a background behind us, a company that's 14, as Paula mentioned briefly before, 14 years, and we have like very high creative profiles enjoying Freepik content. But then you also have like users who are just diving into AI. So it's like, how do you keep having everyone pleased with a tool that is not overly complicated, but it's also giving you control? And I think that our labs team, which is somewhere around here, have done a great job with that. It's like if you want to go into like the slider kind of world of it and control everything with like the creativity and imagination, you can do it. But then we've also brought on pre-made styles that you can just simply use clicking a button, or like to enhance your prompt if you're not really confident in your prompting skill, or you have a different language and you're not comfortable doing it in English. It's like, it's hard to find the balance, but I think that right now we're kind of in between. Yeah.
So if we look at generative images in general, where do we think like, now it's a very hands-on process, you either use text or you use image. Like, if we draw like a fictive line into the future, will we have only generated images, or will it be, where are we going with all of this?
Well, it's difficult, but I imagine a future in which you can create your own design, that you have from idea to the real product, just with a simple interface, super simple. These interfaces, I think they are going to change. Now they are like a little bit complex still, even though you can do a great job with them, but I think they will get simpler and with a great feedback with the machine or with the tool, and you will get the result easier and faster. And that's our mission in Magnific and in Freepik, to empower users to create greater design. So, and I think we are towards that, and it's amazing living this revolution because everything is changing so fast in that direction.
And if we look at the kind of ethics, and we look at what happens to the value, what happens to the value of the work when all of a sudden, like, it's not an artist that spends 30 hours drawing something, but it's an artist spending 30 minutes thinking of something, and then the machine makes all the hard work. Where do we see that take the?
Well, I think that there, especially if we're talking about an artist, as a part of this process, it's pretty well established in professional art spaces that what you charge your clients, what you are paid, is not relative to the time it takes you to make art, but rather the time it took you to build the breadth of knowledge. Yeah, I know artists who charge a lot for hand-drawn art, but they don't charge that because they're spending X amount of time on it. And so I think that we are going to see, or what I'd like to see and what I hope happens, is an increase in respect for the technical skill that exists around creativity, that creativity is something that you actually have to practice and hone, and people sometimes do have just like with sports, some people are quite good at it naturally, but they still have to spend time honing that. And I'm hoping that that is what we see, because in my own work, that's what I value.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this interesting crossroads. Like, you look at artists, but then you look at like the media landscape and agencies. Their model usually has been time spent equals money paid, right? Like, where, oh, this is a project will take us 100 hours. We'll charge the client 100 hours. I could easily see like how this will have to change. It will become more like package-based solutions, and like it's no longer about the time spent. Or you can say it takes the same time, but we do different type of work.
I would argue, and this might be a controversial opinion, the agency model has been broken in terms of artists for a very long time. It's actively taken advantage of artists, and I don't think that, I in fact think that sometimes we're fighting for a status quo that already feeds on artists in a way that's completely unhealthy and unethical.
It's like the incentives are misaligned. It's like weird, like, oh, I need something, I need it now, but like, oh, because we're going to work on it longer, it's going to cost you more. It's like, I'm willing to pay more if I get it faster. Like,
yeah, I don't know what it's going to change exactly, but I personally don't have a problem with the status quo shifting into something new.
I totally agree with that. So back to kind of generative images. How much time would you say you have spent in the last 2 years? Looking at you, Emilio, how much time have you spent?
How much time?
With generative images, personally? Like,
wow, yeah. Even I started also with Javi a brand of coloring books that we sell them in Amazon before Magnific, and we created them in Midjourney, and we were like spending a ton of hours. And imagine, for example, Javi, that is AI influencer, always creating images with all the tools. It's like also a little bit, it's like so powerful that you feel like a little bit addictive of creating. And I think, but that's also a good thing. We have maybe to get used to that, but everyone is going to be able to create almost a professional product that they have in the professional are going to be better professional, even they are going to create better things with this new tool. But also people around that they are not artists, or they are not video game developers or whatever, they are going to be able to create this kind of products with the tool. And yeah, we are going to spend a lot of hours, but we are going to save a lot of hours in the more efficient processes in work, that all kind of AI is also going to help in that.
So do you guys dream about clip and stable diffusion? Like, where are your heads at? Like you're completely,
A little bit,
you're so
to be
thin,
honest.
you're so deep into it that you forgot. All right, obviously like, I come from the side of being like a user of these tools. That's how I got started personally, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of images I've created. I still feel like every day is kind of a new beginning. Like even though the kind of baseline techniques are there, there's just so much stuff happening. Like, how do you keep up?
We have to say Twitter at this point, right? Like, I'm sorry, but no, I think that sometimes it gets to the point that it can be a bit stressful. No? Like if you blink, there's 3 video tools happening, and you're like, I just
Overwhelming.
blinked. It's a bit overwhelming. Yeah. But then it's the point of what you said. It's kind of addictive. You know, you want to be on the loop. You want to know what's happening. You want to be able to go like, hey, did you realize that this just happened like 45 seconds ago? Like,
we're always sharing in a Slack everything, but you
Yeah.
cannot get up to date even in the company Slack because there's so many news that it's overwhelming. I have to close it to really
crazy.
develop some code, so because it's like overwhelming, right?
Notifications off with our Slack because it's a lot. Yeah.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
What do we think about like the whole kind of like training Laura's consistent characters, yourself? Like obviously everyone is kind of egoistic, right? And they love to see themselves in weird situations, me included. Do you think like that type of capabilities will make this even more addictive for people to like create more stuff when they can put themselves in images? Or
I'm going to have the unpopular opinion. I hate training myself. Like, I don't like what it looks like most of the time. But most people do. Most people really, really like it. And I do think that people will likely, I think it'll lead to a lot more AR experiences, which I'm really looking forward to. I think that's fun. That would be a really cool result of AI, is like enhanced AR, or even integrating it more into social media, that type of thing. Like, I think people like to communicate and reflect on each other, and I think it's a great opportunity for that.
so it's almost like getting into the zeitgeist, or like the personal expression is going to be a bit more vivid because all of a sudden I can do these expressional things that I couldn't do before. Like maybe I'm not the guy that has like a wardrobe of all these weird things, but with AI I can be that guy. Right? I can express that on social media. I can generate that type of content. So personally, I feel like that's an enabler for the technology itself. Maybe open the door as well for more people. Because to be fair, like it's still quite a niche when it comes to generative AI. It's not like you go on the street and you ask someone, have you used Midjourney? You're going to have to ask a lot of people before you get a yes.
Yeah. I will say that when it comes to sort of sifting through the noise, I do have like a set of rules for myself now. I look at whatever the paper is or the tweet or what I'm seeing, and I look at, am I seeing results that are only realism? Am I seeing only corgis? Am I seeing only, very specific, very generalized things? And that usually is a good indicator that it is worth keeping an eye on, but it might not be ready to apply to a multitude of use cases. If I see a few different styles or some really unique examples, then I'm like, okay, this is intriguing and worthwhile. And so I put it in the categories, and then if it's in the first category, I sort of wait to see if there are some more interesting examples, because in my experience, a lot of the stuff that looks really cool ends up being flash in the pan and is relying on the bias of the model.
Yeah, so talking about flash in the pan, like normal people, I'm not sure if that is a good expression, but people that are not into this space, that are currently kind of getting AI content on social platforms, how do you think that kind of will impact how we see the world? Like obviously it's a lot of fake videos, fake images of very big name people. Do you think like the older generation knows that this is fake or not?
I think that in the coming years it will get to the point that even if it sounds a bit like non-optimistic, everything will be false unless proven true. It'll get to the point that you will see stuff and it will be like a more kind of distant experience and everything, because you would rather understand that it's like, I'll have to double check.
So we kind of lose trust in visuals?
Well, I think we can actually utilize the technology that we're creating to create visuals to check for realism and to check for these things, because it's all just patterns, and there are very clear patterns in the things that are generated by AI. We see that in a lot of different examples, that synthetic data to the AI looks a specific way.
But then it becomes about flagging, and then it becomes about a lot of other things, no? It's like, today when traffic of information is so quick, I feel like even if you put something out there and it's fake and it gets wings and within hours it's distributed to millions and millions of people, the damage can already be done.
It's going to be a tough moment. So we are already in that moment that we are flood of fake news and fake images and so on. Maybe that we are in the space, as you said, we can tell, but a lot of people they are struggling, and yeah, I agree with Sofia that we are going to be in a moment that we have been we need to be very cautious to try to know if that's a real image or it's a fake news, or the video, even video, audio. You know, now you can fake a president of some state that is saying whatever crazy stuff. So we need like a maybe trust company that is going to put like a green thing in the.
And then we need to trust them.
Yeah, that's also a problem. Yeah,
if it's Facebook, then we ain't going to trust them, no? Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things, obviously. I spoke about this morning, but like the kind of balance between, ethics, morale, where do we draw the line? This is something that we will have to deal with. And we didn't do very well with Web 2.0, so I think everyone is on their toes in terms of getting this right this time around, but we should not fool ourselves to believe that it's a very simple thing to solve. I think it's going to be quite difficult. All right, I think we're slightly, we're out of time. No time for audience questions, sadly. But yeah, thank you, panelists, for joining in this conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening.
Thank you.